Hype Williams, the very famous music video director, he kind of like polished off this style. And then the Southern guys were like, all right, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this glitz and glam thing in like the dirty South, in the marshlands, in their version of the hoods, which are very interesting looking. I say that as an outsider. They're interesting looking, right. But they are. Right. They're very super interesting looking, rolling around in these like beautiful Cadillacs, and with the tall rims and everything. And yeah, there was just like an unabashed, like, this is who we are. Like, we are special, and this is why. And it was all about the performance. These guys, they were great performers, and they still are. But their moment definitely was like those early 2000s. Yeah.
Welcome to Season 3 of the Amani Experience podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is the award-winning Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, author, and undercover gamer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who have gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience podcast.
Welcome to episode 107 of the Amani Experience podcast. For this show, we have Anthony Sylvester with us. Anthony is a music video director and a film director. Three of my favorite things about this episode is Anthony is a super creative and very intelligent guy. We had a deep conversation. I really enjoyed it. Very wise for his years. Second thing I enjoyed was Anthony's been through some adversity, some tough times, but he's rebounded, stuck through it, and now you can just kind of tell he's really on his way like to bigger and better things. Like, he's got his film that's being featured, and he's directed a lot of music videos. So he's put a lot of work in, and I feel his hard work is going to pay off real soon if it hasn't already. And then the third thing is Anthony knows his hip-hop, whether it be Southern rap, hip-hop from New York City, even West Coast. He knows his hip-hop, and I can respect and appreciate that. If you want to reach me, email me, podcast@amaniexperience.com. You can follow me on all the socials @AmaniExperience, and feel free to donate to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/AmaniExperience. Thank you very much for listening to the episode, and to the show we go. Our guest today is a music video director and film director. He manages Cutsdatflo, which is a creative content house based in Los Angeles. They specialize in music and branded content with a passion for character-driven storytelling and compelling visual technique. I would like to welcome Anthony Sylvester to the Amani Experience podcast.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are appreciative of you being here, excited to chat with you. We do a geographical check-in, so right now we're at our mobile studio in Manhattan Beach, California.
Oh, yeah.
Tell the listeners, where did you grow up?
Philadelphia, suburbs of Philadelphia. Good old, normal, middle-class upbringing.
Yes, sir. East Coast, Philly, which is home to some of the most talented DJs ever. So, props to Philly.
Right out, yeah.
Love the music scene there.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. Once you went to Fordham University.
Fordham, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your major there?
Visual arts.
Visual arts.
But it was... no, I'm not going to throw shade. But I learned more. I definitely learned more in the streets of Manhattan than I did the classroom. But yeah, good spot. Good
cool.
College. Yeah.
You went there, you graduated. Once you graduated, where did you decide to go after that?
I stayed in New York. For me, New York was always going to be it. I was never going to be anywhere else but New York. That things changed, of course. But I stayed in Manhattan. I was in Harlem, Washington Heights. I ended up in the Bronx. So I always kept it, kept it street, basically.
Yeah, you're in there 100. What inspired you to first move out here to LA? I know you've been out in LA for a little over a year. Mm-hmm. What kind of inspired you to get out here?
Yeah, I was doing music videos in New York, which is a very hard hustle. Somehow I was pulling it off, and I started getting called more and more to come out here. So maybe every 2 or 3 months, I'd have a shoot out here. I'd have to come out, and I just fell in love with making art here and the whole scene here. So I came out here about a year ago. I had a little interim in Budapest with my girlfriend. I was there off and on for a couple years, but finally made the jump. It's very hard to make this jump out to LA from the East Coast.
Yes,
it really is.
Yeah.
So.
Tell us why, because I have my reasons, but share your reasons why.
Yeah, it's first first off, it's so far away, and you're going to be so far away from your family and from the system that you know and the patterns that you know. And it's for some reason it was easier for me to move to Eastern Europe than move into the West Coast, because even Eastern Europe is a little bit more similar to the East Coast than LA. Okay. I also know it's very expensive out here. Just that whole economic system is different. I was a little worried about not being able to jump right into how people interact commercially and economically. That frightened me as a freelancer.
All right.
So, yeah.
So a few questions on that. How do you compare living in Philly, living in New York, Hungary, and living in LA? 4 distinct places. I'd love to hear your perspective.
All right, so on each one of them,
We just kind of roll through, and you can put them all in one.
I'll start with New York. New York's the big boss. That's the big boss. It's not necessarily that there is a million big bosses. It's that is the big boss, and everybody comprises that. And New York can kind of do as it wishes. It has the largest concentration of money, at least in the United States. Philly, only about 100 miles away. It's kind of like the younger brother. It's like the manager to the big boss. It's not really fully aware of its capabilities or its special charm. Thus, the big boss can come in and kind of do as it pleases. Philly has been recently very corporatized, not even gentrified, I would say corporatized, because people there just don't know what they got. It's a very special place. But part of what's special about it is that people are so humble, and they don't want to they want to screw each other over.
Right.
So it's not a very capitalistic city.
Okay.
Although it's got a lot of charm and a lot of beautiful grit to it. Budapest is very similar to Philly. It's got like Berlin not far from it, or Vienna, these kind of iconic, historical mammoths. Budapest also, though, is a bustling city. It's like 2 million people, a quarter of the size of Philadelphia. Many great artists and scientists, so many very talented people over there. But they've recently come out of an oppression, Russian oppression, post-World War II. So they're also struggling with who are we? It's an identity thing. So actually, it's a great time to be there, I find, because I get to be right in the midst of lots of questions, lots of political turbulence, which they hate. They also have political turbulence. So that's way more similar, believe it or not, to the East Coast than New York or Philly. And then you have Los Angeles.
LA.
I would say this is, I'll give it 2 things. People argue me on this, but it's the most American city by far. Particularly because it was designed around roadways, right? All other cities, at least east of Chicago, were built and then retrofitted for roads. This was no, this is all about roadways, and big lawns and picket fences, it's super, super American. I think fast food really originated out here. It's super America, On top of that, though, it's just this abstract, amorphous cloud of everything: pollution, magic, smells, nature. There's so much swirling in the air that it makes it otherworldly and very distinct, super distinct. I think that if people don't get a chance to come here for a month, they're missing out.
Yeah.
People come here for a week usually, and they're like, "Yeah, LA, it's fine." It's like, no, you need to spend time here to really fully understand what this is. It's a fabrication, but it's a good one.
Okay, great answer to that question. I love your analysis and kind of the big brother, little brother analogy. Well done. So thank you for that. I want to know, when you think about music videos, what's the first video that you ever saw? What video comes to mind?
The first video, well, I've seen many videos, obviously, as a kid, but the first one that comes to mind, people aren't going to know this. It's this rapper, Webby.
Okay.
It's called Gimme That. This dude's from, Louisiana, and it was the first video I saw in 2005 or 6 when I started getting into music videos, where I was like, oh, wow, I want to make something like that. I just loved Southern rap videos. Loved them, and it was a little out of place, I guess, for me and where I came from, but I just fell in love. So that's the first music video I think of when I hear music video. Obviously, there's tons of 90s videos I could reference, but that's the one that sticks out in my head by far.
Why do you love Southern music, hip-hop videos?
For a few reasons. First off, the aesthetic, and we're talking I'm going to give you dates. It's 2003 to 2008. 2008
Yes.
max.
Yes.
Okay, 2009 it starts getting a little too poppy for me. It's true, but there was something, Hype Williams, the very famous music video director, he kind of like polished off this style, and then the Southern guys were like, all right, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this glitz and glam thing in like the dirty South, in the marshlands, in their version of the hoods, which are very interesting looking. I say that as an outsider. They're interesting looking,
Right.
but they are. You know,
Right.
they're very super interesting looking, rolling around in these like beautiful Cadillacs, and with the tall rims and everything. And yeah, there was just like an unabashed, like, this is who we are. Like, we are special, and this is why. And it was all about the performance. These guys, they were great performers, and they still are. But their moment definitely was like those early 2000s.
Yeah, great time frame. Why music videos? Out of all the different types of visual arts mediums we have, what was it about music videos that really caught your eye?
First off, I was a musician from the start. I played trumpet, I played piano.
Nice.
I even made beats. I was not good, by the way. But I've always been very musical, come from a musical family. My dad was a drummer, grandfather was a trumpeter in the 40s in Philly, the Philly jazz scene. It's always been in my blood. But I started getting into like BMX videography, little bikes and the tricks and stuff, and I started kind of like putting music to those videos, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Like this feels good on my brain, like connecting cuts to beats, and like this guy is like this style, so he needs like a metal song, because this is his flair and his attitude. And I was like, oh, it's interesting because it's not super hard work. It's just about like really understanding the person you're filming, and just grabbing their world and accentuating it.
Excellent. What's your perspective on the role the music video plays now, when we're at such like a streaming, like on-demand society, and how we consume our music? What's the role that the music video plays now with artists and with the population?
Yeah, I mean, it's still to sell the song, actually. All these social media things are kind of being clamped down on again by the brands and the corporations. They're making my job. They're making it so that maybe my job will be safe, honestly. But on the other hand, they're definitely not. It's not democratized as much anymore. So in a way, the music videos are definitely still about selling the song, because songs are not really free anymore. You do have to pay for a Spotify subscription, or soon we'll probably have to be all on YouTube Red.
Yeah.
So I think the purpose is still to sell the song, also to manifest an infatuation with this artist. It's still about building iconicism. It's still about, who is this person? Why are they so special? I need to see them in person. Oh my God,
Yeah.
So thus, ticket sales for live shows.
Got it. Yeah. Then as we look at your career and kind of follow your chronology, you were freelance for I want to pronounce this Droga 5.
Droga 5, yeah.
Pump and Cloud, Young and Rubicam, right?
Young Rubicam, yeah.
Young Rubicam.
Yeah.
You went through all that. When did you and why did you decide to go out on your own? And tell us about that kind of mindset and process.
Yeah. I'm fortunate enough that I was freelance. I've been freelance for a while, but I definitely have been. You mentioned these companies, which I really enjoyed working at, cutting my teeth at. They're more corporate, right? They're New York advertising. Pomp and Cloud is a production company that represented me. That you have to follow their systems. You have to follow their formats. Maybe you're still kind of an independent agent or a free agent, we'll call it, you know? But you still have to fit into the systems. And for some reason, I am anti-system. I have tried hard to be in the system. I've tried really hard, but I can't do it. I can't swing it. And I'm 33 now. I've decided to embrace this beyond independent spirit that I can't shake, and moving out to LA certainly solidified that even more, way more. Yeah.
Good. No, first of all, what's the proper pronunciation of your current company? Cutsdatflo. Okay, where does that come from? I gotta know.
Yeah. So when I went to school in North Philly, which everybody knows is like where Meek Mill is from, as like the gulliest part of Philly. We had a bunch of like suburban white boys going to school there. It was a Jesuit school, Jesuit Catholic school, and I just would always look out the bus window, and I'm a hood junkie. I love the hood. I have lived in many of them, particularly in New York. I love the life. I love the spirit, and North Philly is a beautiful, beautiful looking neighborhood. Gorgeous. The colors of the buildings, the style of the buildings, people are having barbecues at 4 p.m. I'm like, why are we not doing this? Why are we not living like this?
Right.
We would always pass this one particular abandoned place called Cutsdatflo. It used to be a barbershop.
Okay.
And only recently have I realized that I need to give it a lot of proper due, because when I first came up with the name, at least applying it to what I did, I needed a website, an editing website. I was very young, like 21. And I was like, I don't want AnthonySylvester.com. And I just remembered Cutsdatflo. I had a picture of it, and I was like, yeah, that's going to be it. Yeah, of course. I didn't even think about anything past a website name. And then people started really take it seriously, and they would mention the name. And when you hear the name, like the Amani experience,
yes.
right? When you hear somebody else say that, you're like, whoa, there's a validation in that. I just ran with it. The place is still defunct. It's not running. So I was like, you know what? I don't have any ethical issues because I want to carry on this name. It defines what my style is. Cuts that flow. I'm an editing-based director. My cuts flow. God damn it, So I just ran with it, and I was already deep in hip hop, deep in rap in New York, and people, it stuck. It's funny because like the corporate world definitely didn't get it. They were like, well, they had no idea. Now people, because I think our culture is so, hip hop has completely become so mainstream that it makes sense, But definitely was just like something that was out of like needing a different name for my website than my name, and sticking with it and carrying that Cutsdatflo flag.
That's a great story. You got to share that more often. That's a great story.
Thank you.
Now, if we look at where Anthony is now, how would you summarize yourself today in 30 seconds or less?
Oh, geez. I would say, I hate this word, but entrepreneur for sure. Do you want adjectives or like a sentence?
Whatever you edit, it's up to how you interpret it.
Yeah, I would say completely contrarian, ridiculous, wild artists, but also procuring business sense. A million things in one. I don't know. Kind and gentle, but aggravated and anxious, and I'm just so many very emotional.
Okay,
there you go.
All right.
My older brother always says emotional.
Okay,
that's
cool.
what I am. Yeah.
Why do you hate the word entrepreneur?
I don't hate it, but I think it's thrown around a lot in a way that it's thrown. I always want to be careful not to sound like a phony. I don't want to say I'm this when in my head I'm not, and that's a bit of a self-consciousness thing, But entrepreneur is just one of those words that's thrown out a lot, and it's taken me a while to embrace that, and say it in public and be on this podcast and say it, Cool. I'm just always worried about. My brother and I joke about, we're always worried about like just being phony, It's that damn Philly thing.
I think as we get to the conversation, people realize you're not a phony at all.
I appreciate it.
We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to worry about that. You've been in the game for a while. You started very young. In your opinion, what's important for creative professionals such as yourself or myself to succeed in today's business environment?
A creative professional?
Yeah.
To understand those two words. What does creative mean? What does professional mean? Because usually I find there's two flips of the coin. There's the person who's like actually like super artist, but they have no business sense, and the person who's completely business and has no artist sense. And for like that artist person, learning communication, learning simplest things like how to write a damn email, how to read the whole email and respond to that. Communication is key. Getting on the phone, not texting, not DM on Instagram. Do the fundamental old school way of communicating. That's how you establish a good sense. On the professional end, Just because you have this thing and that thing doesn't mean it's just going to work. You do have to you have to put thought into what you create. You have to really you have to bring yourself into that product. It's not just like a carbon copy stamp.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I say.
Excellent advice. When you were making your art and kind of coming up, when do you feel was the turning point when you're like, I'm onto something. This is what I want to do. I'm off and running.
I got to say it's very recent.
Okay.
I feel like I've been automatic since I was about 16. I never had this aha moment. I just kind of was picking up a camera. I had a film class in high school. It was never aha. Even doing music videos was not aha. It was definitely a couple years ago I had the opportunity to direct a proof of concept. My producing partner, Gary Comerall in New York, completely made it happen for me and gave me this opportunity to direct something I wrote. And I think that's when I realized, okay, this is I actually have the opportunity to make change. Even if it's small, even if it's so micro that 5 people are changed, I really have the opportunity to take what I observe about the world and think about the world and turn it into something that speaks to me. And if something speaks to me, it probably speaks to at least 100 other people, I hope, That was the aha moment when I realized that my thoughts and ideas about the world were legit, and I had the tools and the ability and the style to make something which could speak to hopefully a multitude of people. Still working on that, but
Okay.
that was the aha moment. It was only a couple years ago, 2017, I think. Yeah.
And when will the project be complete? When can we see it?
It's constantly being worked on.
Okay.
It's a proof of concept,
Got
which, that can mean anything. It's like a prototype for either a feature film or a web series, or, I'm talking to production companies, actually one in New York, about literally shooting what's called like a spec season, where you shoot 10 episodes, and very early talks,
Right.
but it's a work in progress. It's a prototype, so I don't know if it will ever be honestly viewable online, but we have a lot of clips up, a lot of there's a lot of things that you can see, online on Facebook that you can gauge about it. We have posters, we have clips and trailers and all that.
Good.
So.
I saw you use Tumblr as well too, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
So why? Because Tumblr is kind of the forgotten. It's a very powerful and heavily followed platform, but it's kind of forgotten. Why do you use Tumblr?
I love Tumblr. Originally, that was my website. I did Cutsdatflo.com, and I forwarded it to Cutsdatflo.tumblr.com. I think Tumblr is just the best way to lay out the madness. There's a lot of madness with what I do. There's a lot of I do a lot of different stuff. I do a lot of commercial work, be it music videos or whatever, but I also do a lot of experimental stuff that's not paying any bills, But Tumblr seemed to be the best way to house all of that, and to have this constant flowing stream. I mean, it's going to take you like an hour to get through my whole stream back to 2012, But I wanted to make this. I wanted to keep it going because I want this long, nice history, and that's what it is. You take it all the way back to its very beginning, 7 years ago.
Excellent decision. I'm a fan. I like Tumblr.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
well done.
Yeah, me too.
What was the first music video you ever created?
Actually, for my sorry.
That's okay. You can curse. Yeah, you can curse.
Straight up, homie for life. His name's Lamech.
Okay.
He's an artist from Buffalo, but I met him in Harlem. One of the first dudes to really validate me and say, "Wow, your work's amazing," And also one of the first dudes to say, "Here's a little budget, make me something." And he did some interesting electro, hip hop, punk. Very interesting dude. That was the first legit music video. It was Fish Islands and shot in downtown New York. We did it up. Yeah, that was a long time ago, 2009. But
10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah.
What has happened the next 10 years that caused you and inspire you to take a more narrative leap into kind of what you're going into now?
I think that I didn't know how to tell stories. I barely knew how to, and I'm being honest, I barely knew how to talk. I barely knew, I could have conversations, but I was so off the cuff, as we talked about before. That was always my style. off the cuff, and I think it was very hard to understand me in a narrative sense, be it my words or be it my projects. And I just gravitated towards these kinds of visuals, music videos, even commercials, even experimental stuff, where it wasn't about the story. It was just about the imagery and mood and feeling and tone. And I think I got to the point where I pretty much nearly mastered my own aesthetic, and it started to feel pretty empty. Really. And I lived with another homeboy up in the Bronx, Jux, King Jux, to be specific. And he kind of planted it in my head that it's really all about the story. You know, it's all about the story. And I realized the more I dove into that concept and the more that I thought about it, the more that I really did have stories to tell. And stories were going to be the best way for me to communicate my thoughts and ideas about everything, you know. So I think once I realized the power of a story and had the right one, this particularly one about the priest, Father Rock, that's when I was like, you know what, it's go time. Let's do it, you know.
Speaking of storytelling, what do you feel it takes to be a good storyteller?
Empathy. I mean, there's a lot of things. A lot of people say, structure, and they're going to tell you all these technique-driven things, and they're not wrong, but it's not everything. I think empathy with every single character you make, you know, and care of every single character you make, and really understanding your characters, understanding why they do certain things and why they interact. And they don't have to have, in my opinion, my friends will fight me on this, they don't need motivations. They don't need any of this normal technique stuff, which tried and true does work, is effective. You just need to be able to feel for them.
Good.
That's my opinion.
And then why do you love what you do?
Because you know what? I get paid to imagine.
Great.
I get imagination is my thing. Okay, I'm not very good at basketball. I shot for the wrong team once in grade school. I'll never forget that. You know, like I can barely swim. There's a lot of things like I can't do well. Imagine is one of those things I never stop doing. I can't turn it off. And I mean, it actually, at a certain point in my life, I started thinking there was something wrong with me, you know, because your mind's so active, overactive. And only maybe in the past 5 years, I realized, well, I've made a whole career out of this. Mm-hmm. I better give thanks to whatever power that be, because I have a career out of this, you know, and that's why I love what I do. I get to imagine, which is something I already do, you know,
and get paid for it.
Yeah, so it's not bad.
Not bad at all. On the flip side, what is something that scares you?
Systems.
Oh,
systems.
Tell us why.
Systems. You have to plug into a system for it to work for you and for you to work for it. And only recently have I, as a man of society, in my 20s, I would say I was, anti, but I was still living in society. I needed to stop lying. Unless I'm going to go to Peru and live in the forest, I'm still in this thing, So I think that systems, be it capitalism, be it a religion, be it these things which have rules, they scare me. I'm not a criminal, but I don't like rules because I think they trap your mind and they chisel your mind into a way of thinking. And I think that's why I've never been able to hold a job in an office. It's a system. It's a systematic way of doing things. Nothing wrong with it. Some people actually need it, but for me, it's a trap. So any kind of system scares me. Yeah.
As you continue to proceed in your career and get to higher heights, you probably will have to engage with more and more systems.
Yeah.
How are you prepared to do that but still keep your unique individuality?
I let people do the talking for me. I've begun experimenting with that. I have a very good friend, this guy Robert, who's like my project developer.
Okay.
We call it. And it's great because I like talking. If I'm doing work with people, or be it whatever, I like talking to them, for instance, Gary, who produced this film, I like conversations. We have dinner together. I mean, that's my thing, if you hired me for a job, like, I want to take you out to pizza so we can get to know each other.
Right.
The thing is like the more and more I get and into this world and the busier I get, the more I realize that it's better to have somebody who has no ambition creatively, but wants to be a part of something creative, and he'll do that talking because I really need to protect my brain. I interact with so many people that it can really run your emotions. It can twist them all up. You're just interacting with so many different types of people, you know. So I think there's a level of removing myself from the business sense that will allow me to remain artistically driven, you know.
Well done. Very wise. Very
Trying.
wise. Now, the music video industry, film industry, it's very crowded.
Oh, yeah.
How do you rise above all the noise and distinguish yourself from the competition?
It's funny you say that. I mean, I'm gonna start with the most pompous line. Somebody a couple weeks ago I met with, they're like, oh, you know, I told them pretty much how much it would cost, and they're like, well, this guy did it for this much. I'm like, well, that guy's not me. You know, I mean, I never say that I'm the best or the most creative, but what I know I'm very particularly good at is developing characters, and characters that people can be like, this person's weird but cool. That's been like the last 5 years of helping develop musical art identities,
right?
You know, and I think so. I have something which is not based off of visual essence. A lot of our world now with Instagram and with the social media. I mean, with social media.
The social media.
Yes, sounds like Bush, like when, the Google or whatever. But you know, everything's so visual, so everything's so aesthetic based. There's looks. I steer clear of that. It does make it hard for people to understand what I do because it's not evident. But if you're in the industry, you understand what I do. I help create characters, and I think there's not a lot of people doing that. It's a very hard thing. You have to be able to empathize with everybody. You have to be able to get on their level, you know, no matter who they are, how they are. I mean, one day it's about going to a trap house and hanging out, and then the next day you're with some classical pianist in his, you know, what you know, like you have to get on everybody's level, no matter what it is, and you have to enjoy it. You have to really, really enjoy it. And it's about living. It's kind of about living. What's that? Through other people. What's that word? It's an adverb. It's about living
vicariously through
vicariously
other people?
through. You really have to enjoy being in somebody else's headspace and seeing their perspective. Yeah. That's what it is. And I think that's what makes my whole thing unique.
Understood. Yeah. If we go back to how you quoted the price and they were like, oh, well, someone quoted probably much cheaper. That's a really challenge for creators in general to stick to their worth, their self-worth. How have you been able to do that, and what advice do you have for other creators who want to flex that muscle and improve that muscle?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something you can stick with. It's something which, depending on your bank account, is going to go, because there are times when I'm like, taking everything. I don't care. Let's go. Let's shoot it, you know, and I'll, to my best of my ability, I'll run with it, you know. What I've begun doing is, when I have a good project, maybe a good check comes in, for the next 3 or 4 months, I can flex these muscles. I can flex, you know, what I'm really worth. I can exercise that, you know. If the time comes when maybe I can't exercise that, I come up with other things. I started my own YouTube channel. So if you don't have the right budget, but I like you and I kind of need the check, I'm going to make sure I host your video, you know. I'm going to make, you know, as an artist, you have to learn how to take a little bit of control. It's not a mean thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just simply you need the proper check, you know, for when you're giving so much of yourself to other people, because people really don't understand how much you give in this art world. You give everything.
You do
everything.
That's a really unique tip about hosting their video on your YouTube channel. That was cool. I never heard that before. That's good.
Thank you. It's been done before, certainly, but I just saw other people doing it, and I said, you know what, I have my own version of it. And I basically ran with it, and there's been a couple videos up there recently for LA artists. So
that's cool. Yeah, well done. You previously mentioned Hype Williams as you know, someone who's very established and does very well in the music video kind of space. Who are some other music video directors and maybe film directors that you look up to and kind of want to follow in their path?
You know, it's funny because I definitely in terms of film, I'm one of the most mainstream guys there are. I mean, I like independent film, but there's nothing like, forgive me, but George Lucas, Spielberg, these guys, they spoke to the masses and they did it very well, and they did it with charm and grace, and they weren't so precious with the look and the design. And I look up to those guys.
Okay.
Music video, a lot of the young kids coming out now, they're doing crazy stuff.
Oh, good.
I watch more younger music video directors than ever, you know, and there's so many of them, as you were mentioning before, so many of them.
Right.
But they're being taught something interesting. They're
Good.
they're definitely geared in a different route than I was, So I learned from that.
Any specific videos that kind of, or video directors that kind of come to mind that we should kind of take a look at and follow their progress?
I would say one of my new favorites is this guy Kevin Carney, who I've basically I've recently friended. He has his are a little bit more comical, He has all LA artists, but he has kind of like a retro spin on it. But I think he's very good. He does a perfect mix of aesthetic and working with the artist and establishing their personality. I would say. I don't know. There's so many. I can't even think about it. Ryan Stack is a legend. This guy, he ran the company which repped me, Pomp and Clout. Absolute legend. He does amazing work with big Charlie XCX, Young Thug.
Yeah.
You just watch his stuff and you can retire after that because it's a whole different ballgame.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great examples. How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
I don't know if it's a failure, but you can tell me.
Yes.
It's I don't know why this pops up in my head, but it must be a reason. I worked at the Apple Store for one day.
Oh.
One day. This was when I was trying to go freelance, and this was a while ago. It was like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and I just needed this damn job, The specialist at the Mac store in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Thinking, all right, this is cool, whatever. I'm in this cool creative arena. All these freelancers are here. They they hire you because you're good at this software or that software. You're a filmmaker. They make sure there's a artistic creative crew there.
Understood.
Running the floor. You know what you're talking about. And I went through all the training, and a few opportunities came up during training, film opportunities. I kind of kept them on the side, and I said, you know what, stick with your guns here. You need this job, First day, I shadowed another specialist. I started asking him who he was, Oh, I'm a freelance saxophonist. Freelance saxophonist. Oh, my God, it's amazing. Got 2 kids. Wow, that's amazing. You've been doing it for 20 years? Okay, so what's going on now? Life caught up with me. All right, but you're still doing jobs and stuff, right, man? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, then you don't. I thought you were able to keep your thing going when working here. He's like, whatever you did before you started working here, you're not going to do anymore. Oh. And there was just one guy who said that, but it shook me enough. He was so brutally honest that lunchtime came. It's a bad story. But lunchtime came. I walked to the deli and got gummy bears. 72nd Street and Broadway, and I just kept walking. I kept walking and walking. Before I knew it, I was in Washington Heights. It's a long walk, and I was back in my apartment. I said, oh, wow, I didn't go back to work today. And I just took the 2 jobs. I ended up in Ecuador on a documentary.
Nice.
I worked for World Star Hip Hop, which is a very well-known hip hop website. I was a video editor, and that was probably the best fall from grace. So I think it's a failure in a way. To answer your question, to me it was a failure to get into that system and just do it, But I think it worked out pretty nicely.
I think so too. Yeah, that's interesting. What advice would you give people who are maybe just entering the freelance world and just not sure whether or not they can do both, or they need to just go 100% freelance? What kind of advice would you give someone like that?
I would say that stick to make a decision, because life is short. At least this existence is forever, in my opinion, but life is short. And if you really want to do this, you probably can. If you're already thinking about it, you probably can. If that thought pops up in your head, that means you're already 30% there. So all you have to do is just put your whole rest of your 70%, which is going to be a lot of 70%, into moving forward. And don't think too hard about it. Give it a little bit of thought. But jump right into it. If you're really thinking about it, jump right into it, head first. Nobody's going to be mad that you decided to live out your dream. People are going to support you. People are going to look out for you. That's what I've learned. People are going to have questions. They're going to, I remember my parents calling my brother and saying, editing rap videos? Like, but this doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? And my brother was like, just let him do his thing, let him do it. And they did, they didn't bother me, but they definitely had questions.
Of course.
So I would say people are going to question you. People might say, like you were a banker, now you're doing this. They're going to do that, but it's going to make your story that much better. It's going to make it that much better.
I agree 110%. I've been there.
Yeah.
How are you able to stick with it during the tough times?
Personal projects keep me going. You have $1,000 in your bank account, doesn't matter. I am making stuff, I am creating stuff. That's all that matters to me is keeping those personal things going. That's what usually gets you some of the good commercial work anyway, is people see what you've made. So times are tough. Get out your camera or your DJ set or whatever it is you do, make something, and then promote the hell out of it. Send it to people. Never know what might come of it.
Never know. Yes. Now, as you've acquired more success, you do also acquire more critics or haters, as we call them.
Oh, yeah.
How do you handle your critics?
Okay, it's funny because usually with critics, it's always not always directly on me in terms of music videos, right? Maybe I've certainly read like comments where people are like, "Oh, this was cringy AF," and I'm like, "All right, so it's fine. At least I made you feel something, So you're always gonna like go through comments, for instance, on YouTube videos, and people are gonna say the craziest stuff, and you're gonna say, whatever, The hardest thing for me has been the criticism from this last project, Father Rock, and because that's so near and dear to my heart, And people will say something and you'll be so mad because they're so right and it, And then I started realizing, everybody comes from a different perspective. Value what they say because you honor their perspective, whatever it may be. This person, I've gotten emails about this particular project where people just don't get it at all, and here's a million reasons why. And I say, I'm so glad I asked you, because out of your million reasons, I got this one reason which made me rethink this whole scene, and I'm going to redo it. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And everything else, you just let it go off like water on skin,
All right. Dope. Now, tell us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
These are really good questions. Why? Because the images pop up immediately in my head.
And you're a director, so I'm sure it's like pop, 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 pop.
That's great.
What was the little pop-up video show that used to happen?
VH1 it was called, right?
Pop-up video.
Great show, by the way. Loved it. The darkest time, I'll preface it like this. The darkest time was also maybe the most vividly colorful time.
Okay.
I lived in Harlem, which anybody who knows me was a fundamentally life-shifting moment for me, and my best friend, Nick, in New York. We had just lost our jobs. We were 23. I had an editing job at a company. It was the last actual job I had, like 9 to 5. It was like 2008, 2009, terrible downfall of the economy. Nick got fired from the Met. He was the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. He was a security guard who I think got caught smoking weed on the roof, and like he had like this very awkward experience with Madonna in the elevator. He's got great stories, by the way, but a couple of them are pretty much why he got fired. So we were just like looking at each other. It's like June of 2009. We're in the basement apartment in Harlem, and we're just like, fuck it, man. We got maybe a couple $1,000s to our name. Like, we're just gonna do this, And so this is why it's the darkest period. It was a very exhilarating time of life. I think for the first time really felt a part of a community, a community I loved, and we definitely got a little wild with it. We're skating at 4 a.m. We're just smoking way too much weed, way too much, losing ourselves. I really lost myself, in the pursuit of just life and just like nonstop creation, making T-shirts. And I came home one day and he was spray painting inside the apartment. This was not our apartment, by the way. I said, "What the hell are you doing, dude?" He comes up to me, goes, "Here," gives me the spray paint can. I just, I started spray painting inside. We lived in this ridiculous brain of madness, and definitely for me it was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. Life outside of Harlem does not exist. Humanity is terrible. My perspectives on the world were very, very negative. 100% negative, and we were fueling each other. We were fueling each other's fire. I lost my ambitions of directing, of filmmaking. I was done. Forget it. I'm just gonna live this life up here in Harlem, and I had to go home. I decided to go back to my parents' house in August. It was after my first music video with that guy Lamech, and my little brother came and picked me up. I said, I'm getting the hell out of New York City. I'm going back to some nature, live with my parents, which was a whole thing. I love them to death, but it's when you're 23. And I gained like 30 pounds eating 2 cheesesteaks a day in Philly. I mean, I mean, it was a dark period. Not because anything negative happened to me, but because I kind of lost myself, you know, beautifully lost myself. Though. I'll never forget that moment. Never, ever want to return to that, but never forget that, yeah.
And how did you pull yourself through?
I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to befriend a guy named Kevin Lopez, who became one of my greatest mentors. Nice. He was a director. He did a lot of cool music videos, and he needed something from me. I was a good editor. He needed a good editor. Yeah. And I kind of knew I needed something from him, a good directing mentor. He did more to facilitate that than I did. He literally would drive down from Manhattan. He lived in Harlem as well. He'd knock on my door, where's Anthony? Literally just grab me, throw me in his car, and drive back to New York. He's like, this is what you're doing this week, blah, blah, blah. He hooked it up, man. He hooked it up. So I think I came out of it with the aid of a very good friend and mentor.
And if you were to see him today, say he walks in right now, he's not.
He's
that
not.
would be dope. That would be dope.
Yeah,
get that on camera. What would you say to him?
I said, thank you, brother. That's thank you. Yeah, that's it. I mean, we've been through so much that there's nothing more to be said.
Done.
Yeah. You could just hug the guy. He's like the sweetest, most charming, full-on Colombian dude you'll ever meet.
Right.
Ever.
Cool. Good segue here. Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
Growing up, it can be anything.
Anything, anybody, any person, anything.
Yeah, I would say my older brother. I come from a big family, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, mom and a dad, dogs. Definitely my older brother. He does everything on such a high caliber, and you never. He gives great advice, which is never meant for anybody but him, because he is capable of doing anything. He's a genius, straight up. Went to Harvard, the whole thing. Yeah. And he really created this path, not that I followed, but I was able to watch and be like, well, that's the measure of not success, but quality. That's the measure of high caliber. He was pretty much a legend at whatever he did, a high school newspaper, or whatever it was. He became legendary. I mean, he's out here now. So cool. I mean, I get to I'm glad that I get to hang out with him, and now he smokes weed, which is great. So finally, he's on my level.
Priorities.
So yeah.
Yes. What do you find easy to do that your friends find hard to do?
Work nonstop. Yeah, a lot of my friends, for rightfully so, are like, you know what, dude, it's the weekend. Don't call me. Stop. We're doing projects together. Just leave me alone. Me, I'll just keep going and going and going. Because what am I going to do? I love going to the beach. I love it. I love going out to the desert. I love leisure for sure.
Definitely.
But I go crazy if something's not being done, or I'm not writing notes down or thinking about a project. It's an obsession.
Cool.
It's an obsession. Yeah.
And then what would you like to be better at?
In life or everything, right?
Yeah.
What would I like to be better at? Preparation, planning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very off the cuff. For me, every video is I show up with a camera at a location, we just wing it, But if you're going to start approaching narratives, you're going to start trying to make statements. You've got to really plan these things out. You got to really put a lot of thought and preparation up front.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah.
When you were 21, you were in New York City, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go back, talk to 21-year-old Anthony, give him advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your younger 21-year-old self?
21-year-old I would say, okay, that was pre-Harlem. Sorry, pre or post-Harlem. I would say Whatever that thing inside of you is saying, be it yes or no, that thing's right. Don't question it, because what you're questioning is yourself, and that thing is telling you. That thing is an automated response of survival, basically, and protection of your brain, your emotion, your heart. Whatever it's saying is probably right. If you don't listen to it, fine, but you're going to pay for it later on. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business thing. If it says yes, then it's probably yes. If it says no, then really think about why that thing inside of you is saying no.
Excellent.
And I hope it's not schizophrenia. But, yeah.
Excellent. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
I don't want to be a cop-out, but I think it's that.
Okay.
I think it's that there's that thing which speaks inside of you is part of you. It's not this. I think I always imagined that was like that voice inside of you it's. Can't always trust it. Where we grew up with like a couple of these movies where like there's the one guy on the right side, the one guy on the left side of your shoulder, and which one do you listen to? I mean, Hollywood and Disney, they'll really screw you up. Really,
They will.
And I think I really grew up with that idea of this voice inside, this guiding voice, I call it now. But before it was like this annoying voice, and he's saying yes or no. And I mean, it's just who you are. It's actually just your brain sending a signal to you reacting. You're just reacting. That's all. You have to pay attention. I think we're just so self-aware and self-conscious as humans. It's very hard to understand the physiology behind us. It's very hard to understand it.
Okay.
So that's the lesson, yeah.
That's a great lesson. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence is, I love to help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
Which defines me? Or no, it's like my motto, you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, your motto, your mantra.
My mantra. I like to inspire people to let it all go. That's my thing.
I love it. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
All right, this is not a good one in essence, but actually I'm not. I wouldn't say addicted to, but I definitely have a mental what's it called? I don't know. I got the Counter-Strike. You know Counter-Strike?
Yes.
Shooting game?
Yeah.
Never, ever liked these shooting games. I didn't want to get into them. I didn't want that violence. I didn't want to be a part of that. My little brother got me hooked. And it's definitely a habit. I mean, I squeeze them in whenever I can. But they provide such a crazy focus for me. Because for me, I work in short bursts. In 20 minutes, I bang out a whole movie. But it takes me like 2 days to get to that 20 that 20 minutes. The incorporation of this video game stuff, it allows me to take my mind expanding and losing itself and refocus it immediately, refocus everything. The whole game is about crazy focus and protecting yourself and not getting shot. And, again, I hate you. It doesn't sound like a great thing, but it works for me. It's really good. Yeah.
That's a unique answer. That's dope.
So, yeah.
Now, we're really, really big readers on the podcast. We love to read books. If there was 1, 2, or 3 books you feel people should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what books would you recommend?
The book, I'll tell you, the book I'm reading right now, actually, and it's taken me forever to read it, months and months, not because it's a bad book, but because I'm a terrible reader. It's called A Culture of Narcissism by, Christopher, I feel bad, Christopher Faust, I think it is.
Okay.
Was written in the 90s. Culture of Narcissism, man, this guy nailed it before it even happened. He pretty much was like, listen, America, the downfall as an empire in all senses of the word is because we will be so obsessed with each other and not each other's the things we do, but literally with each other. And right, you go on Instagram, that's what it is. You're just pressing pictures of selfies, right? It's not even you can see the beach, it's just the person up front, And I think we've collectively, whatever your political view is, I don't care, but I think to be president, you have to be a narcissist in this day and age because the media plays so into it. So I think when we have that precedent for the president, I think narcissism is definitely a part of our culture. And it can be good because self-love is a good thing. But that's one thing my girlfriend's cued me into. She's Hungarian and she loves America, loves Americans. But she definitely is always like, well, why you always make it about you? You always make it about you. I'm like, baby, I'm just trying to relate, She's like, it's not relating. Like, you're bringing it back to you,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're narcissists over here.
Okay.
That's why we're able to go to Le Moon, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Close to the 50th anniversary. So, yeah,
Close to
very
50th
timely.
anniversary. Yeah.
Very timely. Excellent book choice. We'll add that to the show notes.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received? There's a few things.
You can share a couple if you like.
I would say you cannot control everything, and the more I listen to that, because for me, I'm a staunch free willist, like I believe that like you make every decision, you make every move. The more I sit back and I say, maybe it's not so directly free will. Maybe things do happen to us. They're just always happening to us and we're reacting, The more I've paid attention to that and thought about it, the better my life's been. I'm not going to say that the bank account's grown crazy or opportunities are boundless, but my day-to-day life is a lot more calm and feels a lot better. The more I say, all right, I'm not in control. I can react to whoever is in control. I have the ability to react to that, but I am not in control.
Yeah.
And it's taken a whole load off my shoulders.
Very good. Very good. Why don't you share with us your current projects you're working on and kind of that, and that'll segue into the final parts of the interview. What's going on with you now?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, I still have Cutsdatflo, this production company, and that's turning into a bit more of an automated thing, which is great because I've put so much work into this thing, years of my life into making this thing that I didn't even know what it was until recently. I have people who are really interested in growing it and keeping it going and getting good projects. I'm actually writing a treatment right now for a Dolly Parton song, believe it or not.
Okay.
We've reached a level where we're competitive and we're working with mainstream artists, be it much older was but I mean
mainstream is mainstream.
Mainstream is mainstream. We're in the mix, and that's great. That's like on the side, and my big thing right now is Father Rock. I feel like I keep plugging it,
yes,
but I gotta
please plug it. Yes.
Father Rock is very near and dear to me. It's both based off of my upbringing as a Catholic, but also it's barely about that, though. It's really about taking. I love characters on the fringe. It's about taking a priest, which is a character on the fringe in my opinion, and just humanizing him and putting him in a situation. The situation is like kind of apocalyptic. The church no longer exists, and that, if you know anything about Catholicism, that is an authoritative, for 2,000 years, there's been a central authority. So I kind of imagine a world where this authority does not exist anymore because of corruption and all this stuff, And, I just empathize with this priest who's got to figure it out. He's got no more support, because I don't think people realize that it's like anything that happens. If a factory gets taken over by AI or robots, what happens to those guys, and it's across the board.
Right.
And for me, I just always thought about priests and nuns and like, what would these guys do? How would they work in a capitalistic society? Be it that their whole thing is about service and not making money, but embracing poverty. How would they do it? That's the basis of the film.
Okay.
And that's a collaboration with this actor Gary Comerall I mentioned earlier. He very sweetly came to me one day and he was like, let's make something. Let me help you make something, dude. Like whatever you want. And we did. And it's been a nice starting point for me to realize, all right, I think what I'm good at is coming up with concepts and worlds. Maybe I need a little help with writing them, to be honest with you. And I'm currently always searching for writers. Yeah. But it's definitely, that's the main focus right now.
Good.
I mean, that project in particular, and just chiseling things out with Gary and figuring out what to do with it and how to get it in front of the right people. And on the same hand, I got a couple other things I'm writing, which are of the same wheelhouse. Very things which focus on capitalism, globalization, and the small characters which run around in these crazy large systems which govern us, and how can you be free within these massive systems, you know, and what happens when a massive system dumps you to the side? What do you do? You know?
Yeah. Interesting.
So,
you got some interesting things going on.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
Tell the people how they can find you on all the social media and all that.
Social medias. I would say, my Instagram is at Cutsdatflo, Cuts.flow. I would say my Tumblr is the better bet.
Yeah.
That's the whole world. I would say, Facebook, facebook.com/Cutsdatflo. I'll do a lot of good throwbacks. It's always, that's a big content machine. You could just see all the work we've done.
Good.
I'm pretty much on everything LinkedIn. I'm on everything. It's all Cutsdatflo.
Okay.
But everything serves a different purpose in terms of promo.
Yeah. We'll link it in the show notes. Final 2 questions. What's your sports fan? What's your favorite sport?
All right, this is a tough one. My favorite sport is basketball by far.
Sixers fan?
When Allen Iverson played with the Sixers,
the answer.
Yes. Yeah, the
Georgetown.
answer. Yes,
Boy,
Georgetown, right? It's a Jesuit boy, just like Fordham.
Okay.
I don't love the state of modern basketball. I'm not so into it. I kind of liked it when it was in this early 2000s. It was in the middle of, it was right after the 90s superstar legends.
Yeah, Jordan, yeah.
Right? And then the NBA becomes this weird thing, and there's a lot of these quasi-stars. I love Iverson, but he's a quasi-star. He's never Jordan, But he was just like the little engine that could. I feel like the NBA was populated with little engines that could, or just like the OGs who were still, like Karl Malone was still playing, right?
He was, yeah.
So like these guys, I liked basketball at that stage. I love playing basketball. When I was over in Hungary, I had a park by me. I was the best by far. I'm terrible when I play here or pick up in the Bronx or whatever, But in Hungary, I was killing it,
Let's say you're at Madison Square Garden and you're walking out on the court and they introduce Anthony's coming to the court. What song is playing as you come out to the court?
What song is playing? That's a really good question. Let me think about it. It's probably like a song by Dem Franchise Boys or some Dirty South thing.
Okay.
That sums me up by far because it's all about rhythm and syncopation. That's just literally how I take in life. I think that's why I identify with Southern rap, and it's a little bit of like a showiness. I think of like I would just replace the basketball thing with like WWF.
Okay.
That I always thought about what would I play
and what would you play? Dem Franchise Boys.
Dem Franchise Boys or like that Young Jock song, like Meet Me in the Club, It's Going Down.
All right, we'll rock that one,
like,
yes.
I'm not going to give you like, born in the USA. I'm not going to give you the metaphorical, poetic stuff. I'm not, because it's all about what moves me, and that's...
Great song.
Yeah,
I want to play it tonight, too.
Good, yeah. People need to know. No, still tipping.
Okay.
Still tipping on Fofos.
Yeah.
A bunch of Houston guys, Paul Wall.
Yeah.
Still tipping. That's my one.
That was Mike Jones, right?
Mike Jones.
Yeah. Ooh, yes, all right. We got that one in for you. Great song.
Yeah.
Back then, hoes didn't want me. Now I'm hot hoes all on me. Back then, hoes didn't want me. Now I'm hot hoes all on me. Back then, hoes didn't want me. Now I'm hot hoes all on me. Back then, hoes didn't want me. Now I'm hot hoes all on me. Tipping on fofos, wrapped in fofos. Tipping on fofos, wrapped in fofos. Tipping on fofos, wrapped in fofos.
All right, well, I just want to say thanks very much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I love your energy.
Thank you. You too.
Your journey, it's very inspiring, so keep going. I'm tempted to ask you to come talk to my students in the fall, but we'll talk about that offline.
Wow.
But just keep going. Want to watch your progress and keep in touch. But thank you. We let our guests kind of take us home with any last-minute words of wisdom or advice, so I'll say thanks again. It's been a dope conversation.
Thank you.
Us home.
Thank you.
Any last-minute words of wisdom or advice for the people?
Yeah, I mean, this is people don't love when I say this, but I mean, again, this life is what it is. you should. I just very highly suggest embracing existence as this thing which never stops, but we are on this one thing, we're part of it. We're on this like one leg right now where we're like on this rock, it's floating in space, nobody has any idea what the fuck is going on. Like, enjoy it. It's hard. Some people live in squalor, some people live in absolute squalor, some people have mental conditions. Everybody's got some shit going on. That's the human condition, but god damn it, enjoy the color of the sky, enjoy the trees waving back and forth. Like, I think this is pretty special, and I'm sure whatever leg existence takes us to, this is going to be a very, very special part of it. I hope. If it's all darkness, then we're fucked. But yeah,
cool.
That's my enjoy existence. God damn it,
love
Jesus.
it. Thank you,
man. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon for our next episode.